What is up, Insaners? How are you guys doing today? We're still a week away from the next round of fixtures. Guys, I'm missing the Premier League pretty badly. What about you? Let me know in the comments below. We're here today with a super important video where we're going to talk about the best strategies for FPL teams from game week 30 to 34. We'll cover all the teams who have the best fixtures, some top players to target, and the best chip strategies, so make sure you watch the whole video. Guys, don't panic, do not panic if you have not had the best of seasons. It's been a tricky one for a lot of managers like you, and I'm sure after watching this video, you'll have a good idea about the different options you have going forward. You can still manage to finish your season on a high, so let's do this. Please hit the like button if you like today's video. Our aim here is to make this guide available to as many people as we can, and your likes and comments would definitely help us get there. As always guys, if you're new around here, do check out our channel. We do a lot of videos on FPL. We're also planning to create some content around the Champions League, so let me know if that interests you. Finally, if all this has piqued your interest, please do subscribe to our channel as well. This would help you get the information about all the good stuff that we do. Let's get started then. The way we are going to structure this video is by first talking about some teams that stand out from game week 30 to 34. We'll cover some more teams from a mixed fixtures point of view, along with options that could have a pretty good short-term impact. Now if you look at fixtures till game week 34, this includes a couple of blank game weeks. Right now what we know is game week 33 is a blank game week where 4 teams are not playing. Now this is because Man City and Tottenham play their EFL Cup final. This also means that Southampton and Fulham blank that week. For now, game week 32 also has some blanks because of the FA Cup semi-final games. But according to the blank and double game week expert Ben Crennel, there's a high possibility that these fixtures shift to the midweek and remain within game week 32. Again guys, this is not confirmed, but it looks the most likely outcome. So now let's look at the teams to target for game weeks 30 to 34. We have 3 clear teams that stand out. They are Arsenal, Chelsea and Wolves. Let's start with Arsenal first. Arsenal have had one of those weird seasons this year. A huge problem with them right now is their emphasis on the Europa League. With so much competition for the top 6 spots in the league, it makes more sense for them to focus on Europa League, and if Arteta goes that route, there will definitely be some rotation in the league. Now they play Sheffield, Fulham and Newcastle, so there is a chance of some FPL points, but how many of us actually own Arsenal players right now? I really don't think so, there are many out there. Still, there are some decent options in Tierney, Aubameyang, Saka and Lacazette. I think Saka is the one that I'm looking at. He has been one of the better options for Arsenal this season, and he could be vital for some of these games. There is no doubt that there's a definite risk of rotation, but he's surely one to keep an eye on. I feel from a defensive point of view, Tierney along with Leno in goal also looks good. Tierney especially could be an important one considering his attacking threat as well. I think Aubameyang for me is the tricky one here. He's almost in the mid 11 million range and has started to play a bit more centrally, so there's definitely scope, but there's a lot of investment for an attacker who hasn't been consistent this season. A lot of managers would argue that Lacazette is a better option. I think it's debatable to be honest. A lot of it depends on what other options you have and how they weigh against the Arsenal attackers. Now let's talk about Chelsea and see why they are a part of our discussion today. So Chelsea has been improving under Tuchel, and the defensive numbers in particular really look impressive. They're facing West Brom, Crystal Palace and Fulham in weeks 31 to 34, and there's really good potential here. When I see their players from an FPL point of view, I see a few really good options there. I think by now we all know that Tuchel likes to rotate and has given a run to all his players, but from what we've seen so far, Mendy, Azpilicueta and Rudiger look pretty much safe when it comes to the starting 11. I think Rudiger in particular looks like a bargain pick, especially if you don't have a lot of money to spend. Guys, he's also in the differential ownership category below 5%, so he's definitely someone to keep an eye on. In midfield, there's one standout option for now, Mason Mount. The midfielder looked like a really good player under Lampard and has continued his good form under Tuchel. He's a player who can score goals and that bodes well for bonus points, and if we include the clean sheets points as well, he really looks like a good package. Around the 7 million range, I think he could be a good option in the midfield. Now Kai Havertz is another option in the Chelsea attack who you can target for the next few weeks. He's definitely higher priced than Mount and way less owned, but I see a huge differential opportunity here. So if you really want to take a risk and do things a bit differently, I think Havertz could be a powerful differential in Chelsea's attack. I would not consider anyone else among the Chelsea forwards. Werner is the standout pick, but then his price is definitely in the premium category. I honestly don't think he's worth considering, as there are better premium options in Vardy and Kane and cheaper options in DCL and Lacazette. Now guys, Wolves is another team that stand out if you look at their fixtures from game week 31 to 34. They play Fulham, Sheffield, Burnley and West Brom, 4 of the bottom 6 clubs in the league this season, and there's a really good potential for clean sheets for the likes of Patricio in goal and Cody and Roman Saiz in defense. I feel there's also an option to switch to Semedo if FPL managers are looking to get that additional attacking threat as well. In terms of the midfield, there are a couple of decent options. Pedro Neto has stood out across the whole season and could prove to be a really important player for Wolves if they want to have a top half finish. Ruben Neves also went on a run scoring 3 goals in 5 game weeks, but if I look at the overall attacking numbers, I would definitely go for Neto. Guys, personally I would want to see a lot more from the Wolves attack, but Neto looks like a decent replacement for the likes of Rafinha, whose fixtures turn from game week 31. So to summarize here, all 3 teams are good to target, especially from game week 31, and you could plan your transfers accordingly. Chelsea, Arsenal and Wolves all have some decent high value options in defense and midfield and could replace your Aston Villa and Leeds United players. I'm personally looking at the likes of Tierney, Rudiger, Havertz and Saka for my wildcard team, and it should be an interesting few weeks ahead. Guys, now that we've spoken about the best teams to target, let's look at a couple of teams who have mixed fixtures in the short term but have a really good run at the end of the season. Now there are 2 teams that I would like to highlight here. These are Liverpool and West Ham. Let's talk about the champions Liverpool first. Now all of you know that they've had a really tough season and have also found their FPL assets diminishing in value over the season. A lot of managers still have Mo Salah, who has just returned in 3 of his last 15 games. I know, right? It's been a frustrating hold. I personally lost my patience a few weeks ago and sold Salah. Now guys, before you say anything in the comments, their fixtures are definitely good, and I think the only team who could really trouble them would be Arsenal and probably Man United. Rest of the games are definitely winnable considering the quality this Liverpool team has. Now I'm thinking about wildcarding in game week 31, and Diego Jota is one player that I'm interested in. I personally feel he represents a lot higher value than Mo Salah. Salah is about 5.5 million more than Jota and does not really provide any superior value. A great thing about the Jota move is that it covers my Liverpool attacker. The other thing is that it also gives me the flexibility to invest my funds elsewhere. I really feel upgrading my other midfielders or even my strikers is a better move right now. Now guys, you might have a different opinion about it and that's absolutely okay. I just feel he's definitely not an option for my team unless Jota doesn't start at all or gets injured. Now another area of the pitch that we are ignoring right now when it comes to the Liverpool team is their defense. Liverpool defenders are quite high when it comes to their price. They're the 2 most expensive defenders in the game, and I feel when we are spending that much money, we at least expect them to provide some attacking returns along with keeping clean sheets. Now guys, I'm sure that's a lot to ask, but the combination looks a bit tricky for now. Both of them have looked okay in recent games, even keeping a couple of clean sheets, but I feel they're better options elsewhere. Surely if you have a lot of cash lying around and nowhere to spend, I would probably go for Trent out of the 2. Now if you look at their fixtures almost at the end of the season, their games after the Man United game in game week 34 look good, and I definitely see some clean sheets there. I think it's a viable step to wait out the Arsenal game in game week 31 and see who are playing as the main centre backs and how is the back four performing, but yeah, with the next run, they're definitely ones to keep an eye on. Now the second team that we're going to talk about is the mighty impressive Hammers. They've had a great season guys. They still have a chance to finish in the top 4 and play Champions League next season. Imagine how great that would be for the Premier League. The Hammers also have a mixed sort of a run facing Leicester and Chelsea in the next 5 games. At the same time, they also go up against Wolves, Newcastle and Burnley, and all 3 look winnable considering how well they've played over the season. Now there's some decent options in defense with Soufal and Dawson being the cheap value options. Now if you're not able to afford and want to go even cheaper, then Diop in defense is another good option to get clean sheet points whenever West Ham get any. Now these are some definitely good budget options, but the standout pick for me is Cresswell. He's definitely the one to go for if you can afford him. He's expensive, but he also provides the greatest creative threat. He is the highest scoring defender in FPL this season and also has 10 assists to his name. Now this definitely looks good from a bonus points point of view as well. Guys, I have him in my team right now and I would definitely keep him even if I'm wildcarding in game week 31. Now in terms of the Hammers midfield guys, there are a couple of good options. Now the one that comes out on top is Jesse Lingard. Guys, what a time he's having at West Ham. After not featuring for Man United this season, he came to West Ham, he's played really well and has completely revamped their attack and also got an England call-up. Now a lot of people are saying that he's definitely overperforming his stats and these numbers might not hold for a longer time. There's definitely a chance of that happening, but I don't think it'll just go off. The fixtures still look good from an attacking sense, and Lingard at that price should definitely be one of the first names in your team. Now Mikel Antonio is another player who has done well this season. His goal scoring has dried up a bit of late, but he looks like a dangerous player in every game he plays. It's like with him, you always have a chance of getting some good points. His link-up play with Lingard has also been a huge plus, and I genuinely think he has a chance of doing well in the coming games. Now for considering West Ham for a longer run of games, they also see a good fixture swing after the Chelsea game in game week 33. post that the only challenging game could be Everton in Game Week 35. All fixtures look good, and you should at least have a double up on the West Ham players. Now guys, another team that you can target, especially in the short term, is Southampton. We haven't really spoken about Southampton after they went on a really bad run of losing games with big margins. They've definitely shown some fight in the last 2 games against Man City and Brighton, scoring 3 goals. Now guys, before you get excited about them, their defense is still pretty bad and they're leaking goals left, right and centre. They're playing Burnley, West Brom and hopefully Crystal Palace in Game Week 32. Now these are all fixtures where a clean sheet is definitely possible. The only decent option in the Saints defense that I would look at right now is Westergaard. He's probably their best defender and also carries attacking threat from set pieces. His value is also below 5 million, so you can easily get him for the next couple of weeks and keep him on the bench or even ship him out in Game Week 33 when he's blanking. Now guys, to be honest, there are not a lot of options in midfield, with Ward-Prowse the only half decent option. He's definitely a good player and probably the best set piece specialist in the Premier League right now, but that heavy reliance on free kicks and corners is what ticks me off a bit. You definitely have a lot of good options around the 6 million mark, and I would personally not go for someone like him. In my opinion, a good pick could be Che Adams, who has got his form back and has looked threatening in attack. Guys, he has scored 3 goals in his last 3 games, and if you're planning to get a striker in your team for the short term, he can be a better option as compared to Bamford, Antonio or even Watkins from Aston Villa. Now a lot of managers would have players from Man City, Man United, Spurs and even Leicester. I know guys that we've not spoken about them, but it definitely doesn't mean that they have bad fixtures and are not worth considering. Now Leicester City has a couple of tough fixtures against Man City and West Ham. I would definitely not get any attackers for the City game, but if you have the likes of Iheanacho or Vardy, I think it's definitely viable to play them against West Ham. I won't really go for any defenders just yet. Their fixtures after Game Week 31 till Game Week 35 look really good, so investing in a defender might still make sense. It's still hard to pick one name, but if I have to go for someone in the Leicester defense, I'd probably go for Castagna. He's a bit pricey but has a lot of creative potential. I think we should also keep a close eye on Ricardo Pereira, who suffered a knock against Sheffield United. He's another creative player for the Foxes and also poses a decent attacking threat. Now in terms of attack, Harvey Barnes is out for a longer duration, but James Maddison could be back in the coming games. If he's fit, we could see a different Leicester team in attack and definitely one to consider till Game Week 35. Guys, the second team that we're going to talk about here is Man United. Now Bruno Fernandes is the only player this season who has crossed 200 points. He's an absolute beast guys. Surprisingly, I don't have him in my team right now, but I'm planning to get him in the coming game weeks. Man United have a mixed run of fixtures, but that Leeds game in Game Week 33 looks too good to ignore, especially from a captaincy point of view. I think if you already own Fernandes, it's a hold. If you don't, then you should definitely think of getting him in your team from the Burnley game onwards. He's also owned by more than 50% managers in the game, so if you don't have him in your team, you would lose out a lot more in terms of points. Now guys, another player that is worth having in your FPL team is Man United's left back Luke Shaw. He's had a stellar season this year. He's created 12 chances in the last 5 games, scoring 37 points in the process, which makes him the highest scoring defender from game weeks 25 to 28. Man United are capable of keeping clean sheets, especially against the big teams this season, so it might just be worth holding on to him for now. Let's talk about our next team. We have the noisy neighbours, Man City. Absolutely superb in the way they've played this season. I'm sure there would hardly be anyone who would argue that City won't win the league this season. I think the problem with them is that they are competing in 4 different competitions right now. Pep is known for rotating his squad, considering that he has really good alternate options to the main team. With so much football coming up, I'm not really sure who to keep in my team right now. One thing is for sure, I don't think so a City double up in defense makes a lot of sense right now. There are a lot of better options available. I feel Diaz is the most nailed on option for Man City. Again, there's no guarantee that he'll start every game, but of whatever I've seen this season, he looks the most likely to start all games. A slightly different route could also be bringing in Edison in goal, as he looks a set and forget keeper option for Man City. In midfield, KDB is a really good pick, but again he's at risk of rotation. I would rather have Gundogan, who's a lot cheaper and might invest in some premium options who are guaranteed starters week in week out. I think Gundogan should feature in the majority of the games, but even if he doesn't start a couple of games, I think I'll be okay considering his value and captaincy potential. Now both Man City forwards, Jesus and Aguero, they look fit right now, but it's a really hard call there. Not really sure there who's gonna start every game. I would personally avoid both and look elsewhere. Now in most cases, managers would have at least a double up on Spurs with Kane as one option and Bale or Son as the other. If that is the case, it might be okay having just one Tottenham attacker after game week 30. We saw last week that Bale's spot in the team is questionable, Son also got injured against Arsenal in game week 28, but he could be back for the game against Newcastle. I think this week you should stay put and play whosoever you have in your team, but then shipping out Son or Bale might be a good strategy considering the different options available. Guys, the reason I'm saying this is because Tottenham have Man United and Everton in game week 31 and 32, and then they have a blank in game week 33. Now if you have a triple up on Spurs, it might be difficult to field a playing 11 if you also have City players in your team. So these were some of the teams to target for the next 5 weeks. Some are really good options throughout, and some represent mixed or pretty good short-term value. Guys, with this done, let's talk about the best possible chip strategies and how to get the most out of your remaining chips. Now the way things stand, I think very few of you would have all your chips available. Now in case you do, that is absolutely great guys. Your options are the wildcard, free hit, triple captain and the bench boost. Coming to our first chip, the wildcard. A lot of us have used our wildcards, but I have mine available, and for those of you who haven't used theirs, there are a couple of good options available. You have an option of playing it in game week 30 or even 31. Now guys, again there's no best week to play answer, but it'll depend a lot on your team. If you have a lot of Leeds and Aston Villa players and want to capitalize on this week's fixtures, then you might want to hold the chip for game week 31. Now guys, in case if you don't have players from these teams, only have about 5 to 6 players who have good fixtures, or even want to look at better picks from the teams like Chelsea, then definitely play it in game week 30. Another option is to use it probably a bit later when we have more information once you get the final list of rescheduled fixtures and the adjusted blank fixtures in game week 33. I personally don't think the fixtures in game week 32 would move to any other game weeks, but there's a good chance that we might have a double game week later on in the season. Guys, right now there's no official news and it's a bit hard to predict, so game week 30 and 31 look like better bets. Now let's talk about a free hit chip. Obviously this allows you to make unlimited transfers and change your team for 1 week, post which it gets back to your old squad. Now a lot of managers are thinking of using it in game week 33 where 4 teams blank. In my opinion, this totally depends on your team again. If you have a lot of players right now from teams like Man City and Spurs and you want to keep them in your team till game week 32, then free hit in game week 33 makes a lot of sense. I think this week looks a lot more attacking to play the free hit chip. Aston Villa, Man United, Brighton, Liverpool and even Leicester have a decent game in game week 33. With all these options available, you really have a chance to do things a bit differently here. I personally have used my free hit chip in game week 19, but if I had the chip available, I would definitely use it in game week 33. Now there's one more possible scenario for using the free hit chip. Guys, I'm pretty sure that there would be at least one double game week in the future and you can possibly wait for more news and save your chip for now. Now I remember there was some news that Premier League is planning to shift its 36th and the 37th round of fixtures back to ensure that all the clubs can welcome at least 10,000 fans for one game before the end of the season. Now guys, if this happens, then the FA Cup final will almost certainly cause 2 fixtures to be postponed in game week 36 and those fixtures would move to midweek before the FA Cup final. This would probably mean 4 teams would get a double game week in game week 35 and a blank game week in game week 36. So definitely there is a scope that a free hit could be used in these weeks. Now personally guys, when I'm making my transfer decisions every week, I like to have as much information as possible and the last bit is an unknown space for now. I would surely like to place my bets on something which I'm pretty confident of. So for me, if I had the chip, it would definitely be game week 33. Our third chip in discussion is the bench boost chip. Now ideally a bench boost chip really works well when combined with a double game week, but that is the ideal scenario. Things often don't happen the way you plan in FPL and using it in a single game week could also be highly beneficial. Now guys, any week where you feel you have decent players who could give you points for that week, you should definitely pay the bench boost. A lot of managers have already paid this chip, but for the ones who have not, game week 32 could be a double game week. In case you're not confident about these weeks, then you could also wait till game week 35 or 36 where you might get another double game week. The last option is to play it in any weeks which are probably not blank. To be very honest guys, if you can get anywhere between 15 to 20 points, you should be definitely happy. There's absolutely no point of taking big hits just to get your bench ready and then playing the chip. Also guys, please remember, don't drop your players on the bench that you would otherwise play just to make your bench boost points higher. I mean, it doesn't work like that. Always remember one thing, by doing too much investment on your bench, you might not be utilizing your playing 11 to the fullest and that could hurt you in the long run. Guys, the final chip is a triple captain chip and a lot of managers have used it in the blank game weeks 26 or even in game week 27. Now again, as with the bench boost chip, you don't have to play it in a double game week. There are some really interesting triple captaincy options coming up with Kane playing Newcastle in game week 30 who are struggling big time at the moment. Game week 31, Gundogan and KDB are facing Leeds United, then Salah and Bruno faced Leeds in the next 2 games after that. We know Leeds concede a lot of goals, especially against the big teams, so these are definitely good options available. Guys, you could also wait till the future double game weeks for teams who get into the final of the FA Cup, along with the EFL Cup final teams Tottenham and Man City. These teams definitely have some big hitters, and you could target them in their double game week. Guys, generally try targeting teams who are either in the relegation scrap and their life depends on each game, or even focus on the teams who are pushing for Europe next season. Obviously, the latter makes more sense, as the quality of the players that you get might be a lot higher. Now, in terms of players, those fighting for the Golden Boot will be good options, and their teams will definitely help them get the top scorers award. So targeting them makes a lot of sense. These big hitters include Kane, Salah and Bruno Fernandes for now. Guys, with this we come to the end of this video. That'll be all for today. Still quite some time to go for the deadline. There's a lot of content coming your way. Our next video will be on the top 3 wildcard drafts for Game Week 30, so do watch out for that. It should be out in a couple of days. After that, we'll also be doing a video on the best players to target and top captain picks for Game Week 30 later in the week. Guys, lots of exciting stuff coming up. We're also posting daily content on Instagram, so in case if you're not following our channel yet, make sure you do it today. As always, if you're new around here, leave a like on this video and subscribe to our channel Insanely Football for all the good FPL stuff. Make sure guys to check out our entire FPL playlist. It'll give you an idea on the kind of content that we do. Have a good one for now, and I'll see you Insaners next time.